What is up, clean freaks and filthy friends alike? Filthy Dan coming at you for another film discussion. Today we are going to be taking a look at a sequel to a movie that I covered back in October. And this one is going to be the first Patreon request video. This is going to be for HorrorHead Heather. And that is Cabin Fever 2, Spring Fever. Cabin Fever 2 is directed by Ty West, stars Noah Segan, Alexi Wasser, Rusty Kelly, and Mark Center. Plus, we have Giuseppe Andrews and Ryder Strong returning from the first film. And this one follows the contaminated water supply that we see leaving the small town at the end of the first film. It is now put into bottles of water and is distributed at a local high school, in which it eventually spreads throughout the school. And this all happens just in time for the prom, which is one great reason why you should never, under any circumstances, go to the prom. What I do like about this film, the first thing I really noticed was that it's the natural narrative progression of being that it does pick up from the exact moment where the first film ends. This picks up from that moment, and I think it does very well. It almost does the Psycho 2 thing, where X amount of years go by in real life, and they find a way to make the film feel like it really is progressing properly, where Psycho 2 was done 23 years after the original film and takes place 23 years after, though. This one was done 6 years after the original, and it does, I think, very nicely at picking the story up exactly where we left off. I mean, we have the down-home water truck just kind of cruising by, and it distributes the contaminated water further, and I think it's really the most organic way to really take the plot at this point. So I think they did real good there at managing the continuity, and I think it was just really, really well handled with that. Also, this one feels a little more narratively focused than the original film, and while the original one did feel like it had a pretty cohesive narrative throughout, it felt as if there was a little too much experimentation and little bits to play with here. There were just like vignettes thrown into the original film, like the bowling alley scene, which was fucking amazing, and the whole hospital sequence. It just felt like they didn't really have a strong direction that they wanted to take the first film, and this one again was more focused in the story that it was trying to tell, so I think they crafted that a lot better this time around. It also creates a real nice existential threat with the way that the virus is spreading more organically, and by the end of the film you really see that it's taking what almost feels like a very realistic approach, and that there is that existential threat with this virus. There's no stopping it if you fuck up the handling of trying to stop it in the first place. That I think really just ties in with the continuity and storytelling, and just a real strong focus on the story that they're trying to tell. Now, I don't know where the third one goes with this. I'm morbidly curious to check that out at this point. I did also highly enjoy the bit of teen drama throughout this film, and I think a lot of that is really aided by the believability that these characters really are in high school. I mean, the actors, I think, really do well at selling that they are these high school kids. They're in the right looking age group to where, sure, they're in their early 20s, but they come off as being in their late teens. And I think there's, again, with the drama, you can buy the love triangle, and with the whole main character being in love with the girl, she's got the very dickheadish boyfriend who's that overpossessive, clingy, yeah, you look at her, I'm gonna kick your ass type. The douchey best friend dynamic too was really well done. Like, I think we've all had that one friend who was always talking shit about one thing, but his opportunity to capitalize on that comes around and he's like, oh, total 180 on that. That's the best friend in this film for sure. And I gotta say too, the best friend in this film really he kind of reminded me of a dollar store version of Clark Duke. And those of you who don't know who that is, he's Jacob from Hot Tub Time Machine, or I forget his name, but he was one of the characters in Sex Drive also. And I think the best friend really came off as a dollar store version of that guy. I actually had to pause the movie. I'm like, that's not fucking Clark Duke, is it? But it's not, but he really came off as such. I also really did enjoy the gore in this film. I thought it was pretty amazing for the quickie that is this film. Quantum Creation FX did a really nice job with this one. I mean, you've got fucking skin rotting and melting, fucking blood flying everywhere, especially by the second and third act of the film. This movie is just a gory fucking mess. And I think even for most gore standards, it actually looks pretty good. So the gore effects, I fucking love it. Again, they did a real nice job with the creation of the gore in this. Also, we got Deputy Olsen, Winston Olsen, returning from the first film, and that's a lot of fun when you get a character like that coming back. It, again, helps to tie the films together. And I think bringing Giuseppe Andrews back, it really does add a layer of fun that I think without probably would have hurt this movie a little bit. And he's of course just a lot of fun when he's on screen. Still that very absent-minded cop in a lot of ways, but he does have a moment where he does realize that, oh fuck, something bad is going on, and you think it's gonna go one way with his story, but it winds up going a completely different direction. And I really gotta admire that. And I think when you add Mark Barchant to the mix, have him interacting with Giuseppe Andrews, those two I think just really made for a lot of fun on screen. When you watch it, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. There's just a chemistry with those two actors. It's almost unbeatable in this kind of film. Now, as far as things that I'm mixed on, there's not a whole lot, but I gotta say that overall the characters in this film and the acting that goes along with it, it was a great deal of hit or miss throughout the film. I mean, you've got the characters being mostly fun, but they're nothing really too outstanding. Like, you can have fun with them, but there's no real takeaway with any of them. I did like them, though, when they were on screen, so there is at least that going for them. And most of the acting throughout this was middle of the road, and again, just like with the characters, there's not really anything that specifically stands out except for Winston Olsen, but I'm pretty biased when it comes to Giuseppe Andrews. So there, again, not much of the acting or characters really stand out as anything that I could take away from the film. And also, despite the short runtime of this film, the third act, it felt like it was pretty dragged out. I mean, you've got the pacing being a little rough near the end of the film. Also, I don't know, it was just, I found myself enjoying the film, but also thinking, come on, movie, end! Like, really, during the third act, it was like, they just kept going with it, and I think a lot of it has to do with the setting of the high school, because you've got the characters running through the hallways, there's just something really monotonous about running through hallways, where it's just like, okay, come on, just fucking, we get it, they're in the school, just get to the end of the movie, please. And I think with a short runtime, it does feel a little weird throwing that in there. And also the humor in this film was fun, but I think this movie could have benefited, and it probably would have benefited if they went for a straightforward horror approach. But as disturbing as this one does get sometimes, I think the humor does kind of aid in making it an easier to digest film, as it were. But I still think that cutting out most of the humor could have greatly helped this one. Now, for the full-on negatives, there's really just one thing, and it's not that bad either, but I'm more negative on it than I am positive. And it's while I do think that this one does have a better narrative, and I think you can really tell that it is the victim of reshoots. I mean, there does feel to be great bits of chunks missing throughout the film, and I don't know, it's still cohesive enough, but it does feel, you do feel that there are missing pieces to the story. Like, I can't think off the top of my head, but when you go to sit down and watch it, you can tell that there's something that should be going on here, and that's really why Ty West hates this film, is because they bastardized it and cut it down. And it's not too much of a negative, but you can feel the reshoots when you watch this film, and I don't know, there's just something about it that's hard to look past. But anyway, let's get on to the filthy features. As always, we're starting with the favorite kill. Now, there's a lot of fun gore in this film, but there's one, and mind you, a lot of these kills, or deaths as it were, in this film are really a lot of the same. It's the virus just melting people down in different ways. It's all fun to look at, but there's not a whole lot that stands out as unique, I guess. Now, this is one that we don't really see, but we kind of get the bodies. We see them after the fact. There's these 2 dead kids at the prom who, when we see them dead, their faces are stuck in those old wooden cutout things where you put your face through it, and there's like a body painted on where you're doing something funny or whatever. Essentially, it's like Face App way before Face App, for those of you who do know what I'm talking about. And I think that really stood out as a really entertaining visual. Of course, they were probably just victims of the virus, but I thought it was a humorous little reveal. Like, I like that one. It's one of the images from the film that really does stick in my head. But if that doesn't count, then I'll probably have to go with Paul from the first film getting hit by the bus whenever he comes out of the lake, and it's like real early in the movie. Like, he walks out into the road and gets splatted by the school bus. So it's that one if the reveal of those bodies doesn't really count. Now, moving on to the smutty sightings, there is quite a bit to look at here. We've got 2 teens in a bathroom stall, one of which is the douchey best friend, and this chick that he just kind of meets, I think they were in detention, but they go to the bathroom, and shows her tits, gives him a blowjob, and it's a scary blowjob, because he notices that she's got these braces, and she starts filleting him, sucking his dick, and the scene goes on for a little bit, but it's funny because after he busts in her mouth, you see her kind of get up. She goes to spit his wad out into the sink, and I don't know, there was just something about it. It's like, well, that was unnecessary, but I can't help but admire that just being there in the film, and the little back and forth that they have after that. He asks her to prom, and she's like, "Look, kid, I work for a living," and that does come back at the end in a really funny way. Also, we have a little quick blink and you miss it shot of a couple teens showing their tits from the top of a limo. # prom night. Again, real blink and you miss it, but it is there. Also, we get a scene with a dude and a chick. He's actually taking her virginity in the swimming pool at the school, and it's really awkward there. I mean, it does get pretty bloody. Of course, when he sticks it in her the first time, he's like, "Oh my god, are you on your period?" She's like, "No, I'm a virgin." And it's really awkward, stumbling in the water. She hits her face on his shoulder. Mouth starts bleeding because, of course, they're fucking infected with the virus. And they both drown together. It's a really, really fucked up scene. And again, the dude who got the blowjob earlier, later on in the film, he finds that his dick is all bloody and melted in his pants from the virus. And we actually see his dick in his hand all rotted. It was really... I was not expecting to see that, so that one kind of caught me off guard. And of course, the girl who sucks his dick later, this is kind of a spoiler for a funny reveal at the end. Turns out she is a stripper. And we see her tits at the strip club when she's doing her dance, whatever. And they're all fucking diseased and rotted. It's like skin lesions that look like fucking maggots going on. And you got these dudes who are watching, they're like, "I'd still fuck her." It's like, oh my god. But yeah, that's about it for the smut in this film. It's comes from really interesting to really what the fuck, man. But anyway, overall, Cabin Fever 2 I think was an enjoyable enough film. It was a fun, gory romp through the senior prom. Again, it was a very nice job continuing the story that started in the original film. So if you like continuity like I do, I would definitely recommend this for that alone. It's super commendable for its ability to be filmed like 6 years later and take place like the day after the original one ended. And while I did mostly enjoy this film, though, it's certainly not for everybody, and I don't think I would fully recommend watching it unless you feel like you need a continuation of Eli Roth's film. Otherwise, I would say go right on ahead and check out Cabin Fever 2. It's, again, just a fun, gory romp. As always, thank you all for watching. Please be sure to like and share this video, and if you have not already, please consider stabbing the fuck out of that subscribe button. If you're feeling extra filthy, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think about Cabin Fever 2. Did you prefer this one to the original, or was this just an unnecessary smutty gore fest? A little too much for you? Let me know what you guys thought. And in the meantime, be sure to check out these social media links. We have the Facebook page, the Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, Patreon, and the Stream Demons fan page over on Facebook. All of these links are going to be in the description box down below. And in the meantime, stay filthy.